Start. All right, so the recording has begun. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Today, we are joined by Mandeep Tanwar, our student from Paris campus. We will be talking to her, we'll be understanding her experience and her feedback and suggestions for all the students who would be going to KEDGE Business School this year, especially to Paris. Now, there's the thing about France, whether you study in Marseille or Bordeaux or any other city for that matter, in the end, you all tend to, go to Paris, maybe for tourism or maybe for work, maybe for internships, or maybe for your own personal reasons, but you would always have Paris, right? So just trying to understand from Mandeep today all the do's and don'ts, everything that she has to share. So Mandeep, thank you so much once again for joining in. If you could briefly introduce yourself to our audience today, and obviously the audience who will be watching us later as well.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Prayag. Thank you, first of all, organizing these sessions. Like, I really wish I had this when I was applying to KEDGE. So, as you guys know, my name is Mandeep. I have been in Paris for about almost 2 years now, and I'm doing my MSc in Marketing with a specialization in international marketing. And then I think this year we were introduced to dual specialization, so I chose to do luxury management as well. And yeah, that's about me. This Friday, I finished school for good. And like Prayag said, you'll always have Paris. So feel free to shoot any questions because I see some very familiar names from my LinkedIn that some of you approach me. So just ask me whatever questions you have, and I'll be very happy to answer them.
Right. Thank you so much, Mandeep. I'm sure a lot of people would have a lot of queries, and of course, they would have reached out to you, you being our student ambassador as well. Now, for all the audience watching today, so either you can type in your question right now, or keep your questions handy, and when we have the Q&A session, of course, you can ask the questions directly to Mandeep. So, Mandeep, I will be asking certain questions on behalf of these
Okay.
students, basically directly to you and your experience, 3 or 4 questions, and then we move directly to the admits questions. I don't use the word audience questions because these are our admits. They would be our family members. In fact, they are already our family members because they have registered, they have the KEDGE email IDs and everything. So starting with your journey, Mandeep, where do you come from in India? I know, but regarding the admits, where do you come from? Why KEDGE Business School? Why this program?
Okay. So I have a very diverse background actually when it comes down to India. I was in a boarding school called Mayo College in Rajasthan for about 8 years. And then I moved to the south of India at Loyola College to pursue my licence en literature française. And then after that, I worked at Amazon for about a year because of the pandemic. And that's when I came across Sketch Business School while I was doing my licence. I was also working as a volunteer with the Ambassade de France. So over there, I was organizing the Choose France tour, and that's where I actually met Prayag for the first time. And I wasn't very sure if I wanted to come to study in France or not. But then that's when I started learning more about schools, and I think I had three schools on my top three list was KEDGE, ESEG, and Neoma. So I was still choosing between which one to go to and doing my research. And I initially wanted to actually come for international business. But because of the pandemic, luckily, I got a job with Amazon, and I realized international business is not something for me because it's a lot to do with operations. If you're not interested in operations, that's not something you will find interesting. And that's when I discovered, okay, marketing's really my passion and everything. And I went in for it, and now I'm here 2 years down the lane.
Perfect. It's been an inspirational journey, and not just for you, but for my experience as well, because we don't come across a lot of students coming from India who already have, in a way, we call the French experience already in India, because usually a lot of people get to know the French culture and the language and the experience when they reach France. But for you, it was slightly a different journey. But thank you so much for answering why KEDGE and why marketing. Now, coming back to your experience. Now, since the day you reached France, of course, you had, pre-France experience in India as well. But how has been your experience in France? How has been experience of the program, school? What about diversity in your classroom? If you could talk about that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I think your experience primarily depends on the people you choose to come with. Because I remember I boarded this flight to Paris with around five more students from Delhi who were also going to catch, but the only difference was I got off in Paris and the four of them went to Marseille and Bordeaux. So for me, I was the only Indian student in the Paris campus last year, like at least in the M1 that I was doing. And then, like, I think a week later, this another guy joined. So we were just two people, two Indians in the whole M1 program. So to me, like, I personally believe like that was very beneficial because it helped me step out of my comfort zone. I wasn't seeking for just Indians around me and looking for that comfort. And I feel like that's very important, like when you come to study abroad, because I mean, yes, you have Indians that feels like home. That's the closest thing to home you will have. And you should have them as your support system, but don't use them to like use them as a shield. Ki, okay, I have friends. I don't need to meet new people. I don't need to become friends with new people and everything, because you at KEDGE, like you do a lot of group projects, and that's where somewhere you will, it's always good to know people outside of your comfort zone. And also, like, if you want to stay in France and work in France, it's good to know people outside, because you understand there's the French person in your class works in a different way, the German person has a very different way of working altogether, and it's like a whole different ball game. Like, it's fully intercultural management, and that is something that you get to learn. Like, it's not even a course, but you just get to learn that just by being a part of that classroom. So for me, I think that's very, very important, because I've seen that with students from Bordeaux and Marseille. Like, I think there was actually a girl in my class beginning of this year who was in Marseille last year, and she came to the Paris campus this year, and she discontinued within 1 month because she didn't have friends. And like, we were only three Indians in my class. Like, currently we're only three Indians in my class. So I have this very personal thing where I go meet the Indian students the first day. Okay, hi, I'm the Indian student here. If you have any problems, if you need any help, I'm always here. But I make it a point that I, during my lunch breaks, I go sit with my international friends. I go talk to more international people. If like my Indian friends want to become friends with the international people, I make that effort to ease the transition for them, to like introduce them and everything. But it's also like up to you how much you maintain that friendship inside and outside of the classroom. So I would really say, like, it's very, very, like, I cannot like emphasize enough on the fact that it is really important to become friends with people outside of your Indian friend group, first of all. Then, like, for Paris, again, like, it's a very fast city. Like, you think that Delhi, Bombay are really fast. Like, no, you come to Paris, it's completely different, and it's really difficult to adjust at first, because you feel like, okay, Paris is because for me, like, choosing Paris was like, it's a more international city, and I would have more international exposure, which is true. But at the same time, it is so overwhelming. Like, when you come from India and I used to be like the most confident person back when I was back in India, but when you come here, you're not, because you see like everyone else around you, everyone in front of you is 100 times more confident than you are, and that is something that tends to like overwhelm you, and you take a step back. But try to like not get overwhelmed, and you will some or the other where I think find your place with them. And other than that, I think it's a good city, like, for Paris to come to, because you will find a lot of things happening all the time. Like, even if you can't make friends in school, like, sometimes it's a little difficult in the whole professional background and everything. You still have like a lot of local meetup groups, a lot of Facebook groups where you can meet local Parisians, or like just people who've been living in Paris for very long, and you can become friends with them and get to know them, and it's always easier to like transition. But yeah, like I said before, just do not stick with your Indian friend group. It's very essential.
Absolutely. So just to add one more thing, and in fact, I wanted to ask a follow-up question, because you mentioned it would have been great if we had these kind of sessions earlier as well, before you were going to study in France. Now, for the audience today, for the students who are coming to KEDGE this year, if you could briefly touch upon the challenges, right? So that these people, the admits who are coming to KEDGE this year, can prepare better, right? So I
Okay.
want them to take away something sort of a learning today, right, after this session.
Okay.
And when they go back after this session, they are much better prepared in a way compared to all the students who've been, abroad in the past. So if you could briefly touch upon challenges and how can they overcome the challenges as an international student coming from India and going to France.
Okay. So I think the first foremost challenge would be learn French. Like, I know a lot of people will tell you you'll get a job without learning French. Yes, you will, but it is not easy. It is very, very difficult. So for me, like, the primary thing I would tell you is learn French. You will need it everywhere, because the foremost challenge that comes with anybody, and I've seen so many Indians like this year go back to India, is because of the administration. It's a real challenge, and I think that's where you really need to like know your French. You cannot depend on people. So speak French. Second, have all your documents up to date. Like, I'm pretty sure like Prayag gives you a checklist before you leave the country. So make sure you have everything in and you have all your attestations and everything. Like, I think when you come from India to France, it's still a easier transition. But when you will have to renew your visa the next year, it's going to be really difficult because you'll have to do everything in France. And there, like some of you, I think, might have like sponsors or loans and everything. So make sure all your documents are attested in French with like the Foreign Ministry of India stamp or something like that. So your parents can like scan those documents and send them back to you, because every time like you have to renew your visa and you submit a document, it has to be in French. Like even if it's like everything's in English, you have to have a supporting document justifying everything in French. So that is again very, very important. And that's where you really need to speak French. You cannot depend on Google Translator. And other than that, I think for speaking French, administration is a real mess. I would say like be try to be more extroverted, like for people who seem to be like introverts or who don't feel like going out much or things like that. I feel you should be more and more extrovert, at least when you come here, because the first 2 months you're going to need it. Otherwise, it's extremely lonely. So try to be like more extroverted, make new friends, and also try to be more independent, because guys, you're stepping out of your house. Even though you have a friend who's traveling with you, you're going to make friends when you go there. But staying here in a foreign land all by yourself and looking at your family live their life through a video camera, it's very different. Like you really have to be very strong willed and you have to be extremely independent with yourself, because it's not a cakewalk like how people make it look on like Instagram reels and everything. It is really not that. Like that is literally the 30 seconds of life what you see there. The other like 24 hours, it's a whole different story. So that's something like you have to be emotionally extremely prepared for it. Also, like I feel like it's not like in India, like we all come from different parts and we all have different dialects and accents. So maybe that's something that some of you should work on, because when you come here, like for people it's not always easy to understand our accent, because we have like a very strong accent, and I've seen that like a lot of students face that problem. Like, I don't mean to be biased at all, but I know like a few South Indian students specifically face this problem. So it's just like for your own good thing, I'm just letting you know, like maybe you should focus more on like practicing your accent and like just making your English more perfect, or speak French. Like, that's the best. If you speak French, it's very easy to integrate into the culture, and it's this transition is much more smoother if you speak French, I would say. But yeah, I think these would be the primary challenges. And as and when you come across things, you will realize. But something, get your social security first. Like the day you land in France, I think you should apply for your social security, because that is something you will need on a very, very regular basis over here. And it's very important to like have your social security. Otherwise, you're going to go like bankrupt in a month buying all the medicines and everything. So yeah, like just be very particular about the administration processes, because they take a lot of time. And again, like for people who are traveling in metros, especially in Paris, because I know your first day you wouldn't have the Navigo, so you'll have to buy the metro tickets and everything. So be very specific with those things as well, because like you get fined if you don't have your name or your picture on the metro card. If you don't have your name on the metro ticket, you get fined a lot, and it's not a nice thing, because you just land and you get fined just because you didn't know the rules. So maybe like read up everything about like the different types of rules and everything. It really helps. For those of you who are coming to Paris specifically, please bring clothes which have like proper deep pockets, because otherwise your life's going to be hell in the metro. You get pickpocketed almost every day. Your people run away with your phones on the metro stations. So that is something like you have to be very careful with. Like you can't just like put your phone in your back pocket and walk around on the streets in Paris. I don't know about Marseille or Bordeaux, but in Paris you can't do that. So be very careful with like your belongings and things like that. Even on the airport, like as soon as you land on the airport, because like you can access the airport over here since it's connected to the train station, and a lot of people, like the minute they land, they get pickpocketed. So please be careful with that.
Right. Perfect. I mean, I think these are very smart tips, very handy for the people who are especially going to Paris.
Yeah.
And obviously, it being one of the most touristic cities on planet, these things are expected out of any similar city. And I'm sure these people would be taking, everybody who would be in Paris would be taking care of such things. So thank you so much for sharing this recommendation. Now, let's move to the question. I know some students might have questions related to internships, jobs,
Yeah.
housing. I'm not sure whatever they want to ask. These are typical questions that students would be asking. So let's open the floor for the admits. So anybody, we have around 13 aspirants and 13 admits at the moment. So people who have any questions for Mandeep, especially if you're going to Paris. If you're not going to Paris, you can talk about program, curriculum, internship, something related to KEDGE. And if you're going to Paris, then of course you can talk about and you can ask about life in Paris overall. So anybody who wants to raise your hand, please go ahead, raise your hand. If you're not able to raise your hand or ask the question on mic, then probably you can type in your question as well. So anybody who wants to ask any question, please raise your hand. And just before we receive some questions, Mandeep, if you could break down for us, you mentioned the level of French is important, and I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, going to England without English does not make any sense. So I do agree that French is very important. But if you could break it down for international students, especially from India, what is the level of French that you recommend? Because you're a student, you're there, you're working there, I mean, you're the present. So if you could talk about the level of French they require when they are coming to France this year, let's say in September, because in next 5 months, I'm sure they can't be B1 or B2. And then if you
Yeah.
could if you could also talk about the level of French that would help them in internships or jobs once they have completed their M1 or M2.
Okay. So I think A2 would be the recommended level because like as long as you know all your vocabularies, it's okay. You don't have to perfectly like do passé composé and imperative and all of that. Like nobody expects you to. But as long as you know your vocabularies really well and you can form your sentences, that's more than good enough. Because I think when you come here, you will also realize the French that you speak in Alliance Française and the French that you speak in France, it's very different. Like, I mean, people from Bordeaux and Marseille don't speak the same type of French. So you don't worry about that. Like, just be open to learning the language, I would say. Like, even when I came, I wasn't very confident, but I started going to this exchange that happens every Thursday in a bar. Like, it is as casual as it gets. And you just like go there and speak in French with other people, other international expats who are trying to do the same. So you don't even like feel pressured to speak perfect French or whatever. But it's really like just A2 level. Just know your basics, and you come here and be open to practicing it. Be open to talking to the French students in your class. Like at least I was really lucky, like with the Paris campus, like everybody's super warm, super nice, and they will come talk to you even if you don't speak French. Guys, don't get scared. Like, oh shit, I don't speak French. Don't start panicking. But it's okay. Like if even if you don't speak it, like I have a lot of friends who come here who start learning it here, and they start talking now. So for school, yes, but for your internships, if you're specifically looking for internships in France, I would suggest up to B1 or B2 because that is where like most of your workings would be in English. Like right now, even for my internship, like I have a global role, but you have to like your boss or if like your colleagues are the people in the office, they give you like briefings in French, or if they all go out for lunch, they all speak French, and then you're just like out of the conversation completely, which is not the best way for like wanting to step ahead into your future and like doing something better for your career. So that is something I would like strongly suggest. And also like even for like some internship interviews that you give, like even though it would say like the role's completely in English, they would still take your interview in French just to know if you can integrate well into the company culture. Because even like if it's an international company, like let's say Google, but their whole functioning in France is in French. So you have to like all their employees are French. So you have to integrate into the culture. And specifically, like I know in Paris, it's very important for them to like when they look for hires, they look for people who can easily integrate into their culture, into their company culture, and who can be comfortable and confident at the same time. So but you'll have a year, or if you're doing M1 you'll have 2 years to like perfect it, so don't worry about it. just like every day practice it. Like I practice it with the boulangerie lady every day. I go and just challenge yourself about small things, because it's obviously scary learning a new language in a different country, and you'll have people who laugh at you for the mispronunciations and everything. But don't let it, like, don't let those things undermine you. Just be super confident and keep trying. You will, like, obviously make mistakes, you will fail at a lot of places, but at the same time, like, you will really like come out of it stronger, and that's something that really matters.
Absolutely, completely agreed. So for all the admits, I mean, I'm sure because when we start the recruitment session for KEDGE Business School a year in advance, we always recommend students to start learning French. And somebody who starts learning French 1 year prior, they can of course be A2 level very easily. And for all the people who have
Yeah,
still not started French, you still have around 5, 6 months before you land in France, and probably October you would start your classes. And you still have, even if you're going for M2, that's a 16 months program wherein you would be spending 8 months in classroom. So 8 plus 6 that you have in India, it's around 14 months. So if you start learning French today, even if, as Mandeep said, you don't have to like dedicate 8 hours a day because it's not IIT, JEE or CAT, right?
true.
It's language, right? So if you start practicing almost every day, start with a word, then move to a sentence. There are a lot of online platforms as well to learn French, absolutely free of cost. So try to do that. And for people who are going for M1, nothing to worry about because you are anyway going to spend 2 years at KEDGE. Just to add, all of you would have the access to French and 5 other languages at KEDGE if you'd like to learn
Yeah.
French. So you just need to go to the learning center, enroll yourself for the French classes. There is no extra cost to learn French. Now, let's move to the questions. Smriti says, hi, Mandeep. Any particular skills you would recommend learning before coming to France in terms of skills,
Okay.
apart from linguistic skills?
So yeah, so I would say, like, be extremely proficient with Microsoft, because you will see like a lot of students in your class would come from business backgrounds. Like I didn't come from, I came from a linguistic background, and I that's why, like, I did M1 and M2. But even in my M1, everybody was like super proficient with Microsoft, especially Excel and PowerPoint. So those are two things I would say, like, really, even Canva for that matter, because like for most of your presentations at school, you use Canva. So it's really good to be like extremely proficient in these three specific tools. Like they really help you, because it's everyday work is on these three tools, I would say. Other than that, like, skills, like, I think those would be like, those are the things, like, I'm just thinking of things I do on a regular basis. So it would be that if you can learn cooking, I think that would be a great skill. And yeah, but like I think Canva, Excel, and Microsoft in general, and PowerPoint, like these are the things, because you work completely at KEDGE, you work completely on Microsoft Office, so you have to like integrate into that really well and be extremely proficient with that. Even for your internships, I think like they will look for students who will be doing would be proficient in Excel, especially. Like I think France is really big on like Excel. They do everything on Excel in general. And if you're in a business school, like you are expected to be proficient in Microsoft. So these would be like three tools I would like highly recommend. Even like for students who are going for marketing and digital marketing, Photoshop, you will have a course regarding it. Like I'm not sure for M2, but yeah, like for M1, I remember I had a Photoshop course. So you will have a Photoshop course. You'll also have a TOSA examination, which really helps. Like you can always put that in your CV. So that helps. So I think that would be a very good skill as well for you to practice your Photoshop beforehand, and even like work on your portfolio for like people who want to get into like graphic designing or digital marketing and communications. It's a good way to like already start building your portfolio, and I would say oratory skills as well, because you do lots and lots of presentations at KEDGE. Like every week there's a presentation. You will also have classes for public speaking. So I would really like say that that's something that you should be really focused on and everything. And I think they also have like some sort of higher expectations from Indian students. I don't know why, but they do. So like it's always good to like, live up to those expectations.
Absolutely correct. I completely agree with you. The skills that you mentioned, Microsoft Excel is of huge importance, along with the other skills that you mentioned. Aditya says, by the way, Smriti, we hope your query was answered. If not, please let us know again. Aditya says, hi, Ms. Sandeep, could you please share your experience choosing international marketing track and the internship opportunities in Europe and abroad? So anything in terms of opportunities for your program students or yourself outside France?
So I think like for international marketing, it I don't know, like, do I have to like justify why I chose international marketing? Like for me, it was mostly like I was really interested in the field, and I know like I want to do something in a more global aspect. So that is why I went for international marketing rather than branding or going for digital, because you those courses are actually integrated into your international marketing courses, so you get a very holistic approach with international marketing, I feel. So that was like one of the reasons why I went for international marketing. And regarding the job offers, I think there are lots of it, because like last year I was working in Belgium. Like after my M1, I worked in Belgium for 6 months, and I lived in Belgium for 6 months, so that was a very good experience. And I feel like you have a lot of opportunities in Belgium and the Netherlands when it comes down to like international marketing related, and especially like in like really big firms like Nike, Adidas, Dior, all of these places. Because I know like if you want to work in these companies in France, you have to be extremely fluent in French. So that is the alternative. Like if you guys want to work with these really big companies and you don't speak French, apply in Belgium or the Netherlands, because that's where they look for English speakers. So I think that could be like very beneficial for you, like even for Coca-Cola and Pepsi, because in France, like these companies specifically, unless it's a global role, then again they will look for someone who they would prefer someone who speaks fluent French over someone who doesn't speak French. So you can always apply in the Netherlands and Belgium, and even Germany for that matter. Like for those of you who come from an IT background, I think Germany is a good pick as well. But again, like if you want to work in Germany, you have to be extremely disciplined, and you have to be like very uptight with your work and everything. Like it's a whole different lifestyle compared to the French lifestyle, because French people are more focused on leisure, whereas Germans are not. And I think you will meet like your German classmates and work with them. You'll realize the different types of working environment that they all come from. So yeah, but then like even at KEDGE, you have like around I think 5 or 6 job platforms where they give you, and I think 2 of them are specifically for opportunities outside of France. So those actually like employability. Kedge is very good because they put you out like there's job teaser, there's Agora, and I'm forgetting like there are 3 4 other platforms I know, where they always like constantly help you. You also have like professors like I was actually interviewing for a marketing agency where I had to do a communication plan for Nike. And I just rang up my teacher and I was like, okay, this is what I have to do for my interview. Can you help? And she stayed on a call with me for an hour and she helped me completely like do the whole presentation. So that's again like a very big plus point. Like the teachers are super nice, and it really depends on like how you have your relationship with the teachers too. But they're always like up for helping you. And like because I here like you have like multiple rounds of interviews for your internship. Like the first round's usually with the HR, the second round is, for me it was marketing, so it was with their marketing head, director, whoever. And then they give you a project to do. There's always a project to do because they really want to see your skills. It's not like, you know, in India, like I know a lot of us like lie on our resumes about our skills. I don't think you can really like pull that one off in France, because they give you projects based upon your skills to do, to see how well you can really do the project, and it's going to be also related to the role you've applied for. So that somewhere again like your teachers will really help you, and even your colleagues at school, like they're always like up for helping you and everything. So yeah, and don't worry about opportunities. I think there are lots of opportunities here. You just have to like be patient.
Right, perfect, Mandeep. Thank you. We have another question from Nitya who says, hi, Mandeep. I'll be joining Paris campus for marketing as well. If you could briefly touch upon the experience of studying marketing and your housing situation. Just before you answer that, Nitya, we have shared list of around 10 brochures for housing in Paris in the WhatsApp group. We have also shared the recording of the webinar conducted by Cynthia. So that is also there. Plus, you have the contact details of Cynthia, so you can just simply drop in an email with your budget, estimate dates of check-in, and she would be sharing all the details with you anyway. But still, Mandeep, your experience of housing and studying marketing.
Okay, so I'll start with the good part first about studying marketing. So I think for the people who are actually coming to Paris like this year or next year, we have a brand new campus, which is like, I think, 2 months old. So you will really be like walking into a brand new campus with like a lot more amenities and facilities I had when I joined 2 years ago. But it's like a really nice campus. I would say it's obviously not as grand and as amazing as the ones in Marseille or Bordeaux, but for Paris, it's a pretty good campus, first of all. So you'd have like the chance of like being in that campus. And for marketing, I think like you have very interesting courses. You have like sustainable marketing, because KEDGE is like really focused on sustainability, and you'll see like you'll have a lot of activities also related to sustainability. Then you'll have courses in digital marketing. You'll have courses in Photoshop, like I explained, not just like Photoshop, even like video editing. And you'll have branding, like different types of branding, not just like focusing on like strategic branding, but like cultural branding. Then you'll have negotiations. So you will have a lot of different types of subjects. And the best part is like the teachers are really, really good, very proficient, I would say, like with the subjects that they teach. And you can always like approach them. And there's always a group project for every subject. Like for some subjects, there are two group projects. So it's always like what you're studying, you're doing it at the same time. So you really understand. There's nothing like, you study something for 3 months and then you give an exam, and it's not really you're just like mugging up things. You're not really learning. But that's something I really like about KEDGE, that you are doing what you're learning at the same time. Like if you have a 3 hour class, 1.5 hour the teacher is going to teach, the other 1.5 hour you're going to sit and work on your project. And that's really helpful because you understand what you're doing. You have like real time cases that you're working on. Like you're working on actual brands which are in the market right now, which are facing the current issues. So you're really like out there present. It's really like, you're working for that specific company when you work on that specific project. So for me, like the whole experience has been like honestly really enriching. I would say like it's amazing, like the way they teach at KEDGE. I genuinely really like it. And like for Indian students, like I think you might find it like a little bit easier because there's not as much pressure. You have like at Indian schools, there's a lot more pressure. You don't have the same kind of pressure at KEDGE, which I find like to be very nice because I can take my own sweet time to like really understand and work on something rather than like having that constant thing. Okay, no, you have to do it right now. So that would be it. And now for the housing experience, I think it's a bittersweet one. So I know, like I think recently they have like this student resident, which is like 15-20 minutes walk from the Paris campus. It's in Ivry, which is like just outside of Paris, but like it's Ile-de-France. Yeah, that's something you guys should know about Paris. Like it's Paris and then it's Ile-de-France. It's like NCR and Delhi. So that's something that really helps when you're looking for houses. You can look for houses in Ile-de-France, but don't go to like the far ends like Cologne and stuff. That's too far. But like closer on the periphery of Paris, if you look for houses, it's cheaper than looking for houses inside of Paris. Like let's say your budget is 600 up to 600, so you look for houses on the periphery of Paris. But if you can like really afford like 800, 900, then you can easily find houses inside of Paris. So yeah, there's this student residence that I'm aware of, and I know a lot of my friends who live there. Then there is a Studapart. I think that's an amazing website to really find a house in Paris, and it's really efficient. Just be aware of scams, because I think some of you will also start looking on Facebook groups and other things. So please be aware of scams. Like Paris is full of scams. There is a scam about everything in Paris, so be very careful. Like there will be someone who will post pictures of a house. They will approach you. They will be like, okay, this is the house. They will even video call you and show you the house. So you really believe this is the house. And by the end of the day, when you come to Paris, there's no house. So please be very careful with that. Like if you know someone, if you already have a friend, either ask them to really go see the house, or you ask for like the documents of the proprietor. Like just ask him to like send his or her documents. But it's always good to like go with a trusted website. I would say like either go for Studapath or the ones like Prayag and KEDGE suggested you guys, because like at least for the first 3 months when you come here, pay a little extra, stay in a safe environment. Once you get the hang of the city, you can go look out for a place for yourself, look for something within your budget. And there are like lots of options. But just for when you're coming and you're super new to the city, I would say always choose the safer option, even if it's expensive.
Absolutely. And this is precisely why we have recommended everyone Kedge housing, number one. And we have recommended everyone at least, I mean, if they're going for Kedge housing, there is no problem or no issues. So that's why they can book housing for 1 year as well. But this is why Campus France also recommends to book housing at least for 90 days. As Mandeep said, so go there, live there for 3 months. There might be times when you don't like the place, or maybe you have friends who would like to move in with you, you'd like to rent a new apartment, share it with more friends, then of course you can rent in and change. There's just 1 month notice, and you give the notice, and then of course you can leave the apartment and you can move it. But anyway, always go for Kedge recommended housing. I think we have around 21 brochures shared with all of you for Marseille, Bordeaux, and Paris. In Marseille, we have shared Elotra and Estudine. In Bordeaux and Paris, we have shared around 19 of them. So please go through them and only book accommodation. In fact, not just accommodation, anything which you do, whether it's wire transfer or money or sending offer letters or receiving documents or visa process, always follow the school's guidelines, because whether it's France or India, there will always be people to scam you, right? So always follow the advice given by the students who are right now in campus, like Mandeep, alums, or the school's admissions teams. So thank you so much, Mandeep, for that. We have one more question from Tanya, who says, does having experience in India help? And what was your job? Was that in marketing?
Okay, so my experience in India, so I had two work experiences. So one was in marketing, which was with Vicom, and but that was like an internship for a year. And then like my full-time job, it was with Amazon and it was in operations. So it had nothing to do with marketing at all. So I mean, obviously like having a background helps, always helps. There is no doubt about that. But like I would suggest like it it's a little difficult like when you just have a background based completely upon India. But then again, guys, that also depends upon like how your resume looks, how your cover letter looks, how are you really approaching the people. Like I think one recommendation I could give you guys, this is something I did for my internship, because like for M1 it didn't really matter where you intern, like as long as it's within the European Union, so they think okay, she has a European experience. But for like M2, I really wanted to like land with a very good company and everything. So put down your top companies, start following them on LinkedIn, start following people from them on LinkedIn. And then like I have this Excel file where I have like the marketing head. Okay, let's say it's Dior. So Dior, marketing head, HR, their email or their LinkedIn profile. And then make connections with them on LinkedIn and you start emailing them on LinkedIn. So it's always a good idea. Like don't spam them. Like do a good write up. Like okay, I'm currently pursuing my masters. I'm looking for this opportunity in this month for this duration. Be very specific. Like that's something that you will come. Like you really can't beat around the bush. What you want, you ask for it. Like in India, that's something like as Indians, I don't think we're very acquainted with that concept of just really asking for something we want. Here you have to do, like if you don't like something, you have to speak up immediately. If you really want something, you ask for it directly. So you write a good email and you send it to them, and most of them, even if they don't have something, they will still notice your profile and they will still check you out on LinkedIn. Like have a good LinkedIn as well. They'll check you out on LinkedIn and they will like approach you. Like for me, like my current internship, I got it based upon a LinkedIn connection. I did not apply to them. They just saw my resume on my LinkedIn and they approached me and I had an internship. So that's something like I would really say that you should also do, like focus on building your LinkedIn network really well and focus on like, just trying to be getting to know more and more people. Also like the people that you meet in unofficial setting, like you'll meet a lot of Indian people or you'll meet random people at bars and everything. Don't treat it as just an unofficial setting, okay? Because remember, your aim by the end of the day is to land a good job. So if you meet someone who is working at, let's say, Danone, and they are the global head or something there, and you bump into them in a bar, exchange numbers, stay in touch, meet them again for a coffee in a proper official setting, and just network. It's always good to network. Like even if that person doesn't have a role for you, they'll recommend you to a third person and you will find something. Like networking is really, really, really important. I would like precise on that more than like having a good background or not. It's really important to like network really well, and you will find something. And I think like the key is patience. Like you really have to be patient. You can't just keep thinking ki, no, it's going to happen, it's not happening for me, and you go back to India. Because I know a lot of students who do that. I know a lot of students from last year who just went back to India. Don't do that. Try to find something. Also, for people who are going to go in M1, I think at the end of your M1 you get a list of options. Either do an internship or do a corporate project or learn a language or do an exchange program. I would highly suggest you do an internship. Like prioritize, like if you obviously don't get anything by the time of your deadline, then you choose something else. But if you can, just try to get an internship anywhere in Europe. Like move for 6 months. It's going to be a good experience. It's going to be like an exchange. So do that, because like it's always beneficial to have like a European experience on your CV already.
I agree. And just to add to what Mandeep said, this is very important, and because this is one of the very strong and important recommendations that you made, Mandeep, because a lot of students coming from India, and this is not their fault because this is the way we have been raised up, and this is the way we have had a
Yeah.
learnings, and this is our education system and pretty much the job system as well, right? Now, when it comes to India, a lot of people, they are more job focused, right? So from the very first day when we land in France, we think about job, right? We have a lot of students who would reach France. I'm not just talking about KEDGE, and I'm not just talking about Indian students going to France. I'm talking about Indian students in general. So when we go abroad, from the very first day, the first thing that comes to our mind is job, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes we also go ahead and inquire with the career services, hey, how can I get a job, right? So first of all, you're going there for higher education, right? You're going there for a master's or undergrad, whatever the program is. Now, a master's or undergrad, whatever the program that you're going for, is a platform to prepare you for the job, right? Now, Mandeep was doing a job. I mean, she was working in linguistics. Now she's studying marketing. Her aspirations are to make a career in marketing, right? So she can't expect to be landed in a college and day one she inquires about jobs. And this is something I recommend to all the students. So spend your first semester, if you're going only for M2, right? 1 year program, because it's a fast-paced program. Only 8 months in the classroom, 8 to 10 months, and then you enter the job market. So spend your first semester, you know, uh, building your network. A lot of people in India, when we go abroad, of course, we go abroad because we want to study abroad, but we don't care about our LinkedIn profile. We care more about our Instagram profile. A lot of our Indian students do not even have a professional picture on LinkedIn, no professional bio on LinkedIn. They never post on LinkedIn. They have probably 100, 500, or 1,000 connections, and they are random connections. So what Mandeep mentioned just now is exactly what I did in 2015. A lot of students, they do it. So, for example, if and this is a very important point, Mandeep. So thank you so much for raising that. If you want a job in marketing, right, make a list of top 10 companies in marketing in that specific city where you want it. And then probably also gather information about top 10 startups in that domain, right? Top 10 large companies in that domain. And go to LinkedIn, try to connect with their marketing people, HR people, because you never know. Sometimes they post about jobs, right? Recently, I created a, not recently, 3 years back, I created a LinkedIn group for jobs, and that is specifically for people who post jobs on LinkedIn. So I don't go on Naukri.com or Indeed and copy the URL from there. This is completely referrals based, because now I have a network around 11,000 people. Somebody would be definitely posting about jobs, right? So I just share that with all the students. So create your network, invest somebody asked what are the important skills we should learn. So apart from the soft skills and the hard skills, you should also focus on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is not used in India the way it should be, and it's extensively used not just in France, but entire West, right? So try to build your network, focus a lot on network. I would give you a very simple example. This is for the benefit of all the admits. There was a student, I can name him. His name is Siddhant Mishra, very good friend of mine, supply chain graduate, class of 2016, same batch as mine. he was looking for a job, right? And he was in India for some family function. He met Lawrence. Lawrence was my colleague in 2016, and she was in Bangalore, and they met each other in a lift, in an elevator, right? And she was like, "Hey, I have seen you," and he was like, "Yeah, I'm a student at ISLI, and I'm looking for internship." And she was like, "Okay, I know somebody in France. He's a French entrepreneur, and he is looking for interns." Right. So that is the kind of network she had. And the student used that network. And then he interned that company, not just intern, also converted the job, the internship into the job. And the name of the company was Safran. Now, Safran is the same company that makes engines for Rafale. I'm sure a lot of people know what Rafales are, the fighter jets India bought from France. So this is the kind of opportunities you would have once you build your network. We can't really expect ourselves to go abroad in a top 10 school, triple accredited, top 100 rankings, Financial Times, all looks fancy, and expect a job just like we get the jobs in India. So we have a placement day, companies come, they interview us, they give us the offer letters, right? And there is a very famous saying, India does not have a jobs problem, it has a wages problem, right? In France, wages would not be a problem. Problem would be the jobs, because there is a law of minimum wages, right? You in turn, you would be getting minimum 570 something euros. That's the bare minimum, right? Of course, the average internship stipends would be around 1,000 to 1,800 euros, and Mandeep can confirm if I'm wrong, because this is something which has been also told by our students who have got internships. So 1,000 to 1,800 euros, number one. Number two, coming to jobs. Again, if you have a CDI, your salary starts from 39,000 euros. If you have a blue card, starts from 54,000 euros. But let's not get there. CDI is 39,000. CDD, of course, even if you're getting around 35, 36,000 euros, you get a CDD. So in France, you would not have the challenge of wages. You would definitely have the challenge of job, and not just France, any country for that matter, right? Language is a very important tool, but it's not the only barrier that we think of it as a barrier. Because if you look at the UK, what is happening in the UK at the moment? Everybody speaks English, right? But 2020, only 18,000 students went to UK, right? And last year, 130,000 students went to UK, 130,000. Now, do you really think 130,000 jobs are there every year only for Indian students? So jobs are always going to be a challenge. And this is why what you should be doing, as Mandeep said, to prepare yourself. How? Learn the language, integrate into the culture, network better, learn Microsoft skills, right? Learn soft skills, and then, of course, apply for jobs all across Europe, because you have a Schengen visa. Of course, that's not the work permit that allows you to travel, take interviews, travel anywhere across Europe. And as Mandeep already said, at KEDGE, you would have two dedicated platforms for jobs abroad. So you can go to them, you can apply for jobs. You have a lot of students. Mandeep interned in Belgium. We had Julian D'Souza, who's working in Amazon Luxembourg. We had Samhita last year. She's working in London. So you would have opportunities abroad, but then the question is, are you really skilled? That is the most important question, right? 2015, 16, there was a wave of Indian students. They would be like, "Hey, Prayag, don't come to France, or don't tell students to go to Europe because they don't get jobs." But my only question to them was, were you skilled enough? So skill is the very important part, right? So again, prepare for skills. If you're not learning French, why aren't you learning French? If you're not learning Microsoft Excel, why aren't you doing that? Just, I mean, as Mandeep said, if you're not even cooking, or you don't know how to cook, then probably why you shouldn't be doing that, because you have 6 months. Try to do these things, because you're going to study abroad, and that is going to be one very important decision of your life. So job is something which a lot of students always inquire with me, and this is somewhere, a very, very I would say a soft corner in my heart for jobs. And this is, I really want people to understand how jobs mechanism works. And thank you, Mandeep, for sharing all your feedback, your suggestions. I'm sure this would help a lot of students. Quick question from Soumya. She says, has job teaser helped you in getting an internship, or was it otherwise?
So for me, I honestly didn't really need to apply to job teaser. Like I was lucky enough for both my internships. Like I found them pretty quickly and it was pretty easy. But I know a lot of students in my class who use job teaser and who have found internships through job teaser, because the good part about job teaser is like it's the same job you'll see on LinkedIn as well. But the only part when you apply through job teaser, it's KEDGE that is applying for you. So that is something that where you will stand out among the other 100 people who have applied through LinkedIn, because it's also like they already know, okay, this is a growing cool student, I'm going to prefer this student over a regular business school student or over a regular state school student. So that's something that you've already filtered yourself through, let's say 50 applicants. Now the other rest 50, that's completely based on your skills and how you present your resume. And also to add to what Prayag said, I had like two things. One, for like people, specifically people who want to like go into marketing and like want to focus more on like communications or digital marketing. In France, at least if you want to look for job, I think even in Europe, try to look for marketing agencies, because a lot, like all big companies in France, whether it's Coke, whether it's Denon, Pernod Ricard, all these companies are always having outhouse marketing. So there is someone who's, they have a liaison with another marketing agency. So look for them, because you will not always have these, you go to France and you're like, okay, this is my dream company, this is where I want to work. No, but that company is not even doing marketing, they're doing data analysis. Unless you're interested in data analysis, go for it. But if you're not, if you really want to like get into the creative side of marketing, it's mostly done by outhouse companies. To look for those agencies and start working with those agencies. And like, yeah, I think that's very, very important. Like, you Google agencies, marketing agencies in France. You also go to like different websites and you see there if they have mentioned which agency they're working with for their marketing campaigns and things like those. So that's something like really beneficial, because sometimes like you've not even heard of a company and their clients are like Dior, L'Oreal, Campari, all of these brands, and you're just like, okay, I didn't even know about this, because you're too busy applying to those other companies. And second thing, like Prayag said about your LinkedIn, like build your LinkedIn, but as an international student, have an added value to you. Like that's something that's really important. That what makes you really stand out. There are other like some thousand other international students who have also faced the same kind of hardships that you have faced. So what is an added value for you, or what do you bring to the table? Like I started my own blog, which like I was just writing about my journey as an international student. Like honestly, it's not something that was really creative or something out of the box. It was something very regular, but it helped me like during my interviews to be like, okay, she's really good at writing, she's really, because I wanted to get into communication. So that was like, okay, copywriting skills, something like you don't have to mention this in your resume, it just speaks for yourself. So try finding something, like if some of you are good at video editing and things like those, like start your own Instagram page and like do like video editing things. Of like, Paris is a beautiful city, even France, like it's a beautiful country, guys. Like post videos about that. If you're into photography, post videos about that and put that on your resume, put that on your let's say the motivation, because it's really going to help you. Like you really have to stand out. You just can't be like, okay, I am one out of the 100 students who go to KEDGE. I've also followed the same classes they followed. Like it's not, you really have to like add an extra value to you, and you have to like really tell them, okay, this is why I am the perfect hire.
Right. Thank you so much, Mandeep, for those recommendations. Very interesting discussion today. A lot of inputs that you made, I'm sure is going to help a lot of admits today, and very, very meaningful conversation with you. I am very hopeful that all the admits who would be watching this session today, or probably people watching it in the future, would know what it takes to become an international student. Just having a passport and a visa is not enough. You have to be skilled enough as well. So thank you so much, Mandeep. With that, probably we would wrap up the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. We would be sharing the video recording with everyone, and I'd also share it with you, Mandeep. Once again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
It was a
thank you for
pleasure talking
having
to
me.
you. Yeah. Have a
Yeah,
wonderful evening.
thank
Thank you,
you, you
everyone.
too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.